to East Coast DNA. I'm Darcy, and Andrew is stepping aside for this episode. Today we have another PEI-based artist, Dylan Menzie. Welcome, Dylan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So just before we started here, we were chatting for a second, and just the topic of podcasts themselves. In my research around East Coast musicians, I did stumble across one that you were doing yourself at one point.
Yeah.
Is that coming back for season 2?
I have no idea. I don't have
Okay.
any plans to make it come back, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed to it. It's just, as you know, it's when you're editing it and hosting it and everything, it's a lot of work. So
Yeah.
it can
Absolutely.
be, it was pretty draining. And I wanted to make sure that, I was coming with questions that were really well thought out too, and maybe try and find some. And I was also doing it kind of as a promotion from the record that I
Hmm.
released at the time, so it all kind of made sense to do it then. I really enjoy talking to people about their inspirations and their dreams, and getting to know them on a deeper level like that. Like some people that I had on were friends of mine for years and years, and I never really knew them in the way that I got to know them after interviewing them.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Like
it's always fun.
yeah, definitely. There was a woman. Her name is she's a photographer here on PEI. Her name is Patricia Bork. And mentioned in the episode she talked about her husband passing, and getting to like kind of have a not a like an opportunity to speak her mind to him one last time in a dream that she had, and they had this moment together. So that was pretty powerful stuff, and I felt like I got to really know her on a deeper level.
Yeah. That's amazing. And there
Yeah.
was quite a few guests that you had. I was skimming through there earlier today just to see a little refresher on who was on there. I know I didn't hear all of them at the time. And that would have been kind of the timing was when we had lockdowns and stuff as well. So
Exactly. And I
I
was I
think,
was lucky enough to get a grant from the Canada Council to do it as well.
awesome.
So it really helped, put me through that summer as well, like in
Yeah.
terms of just having a project, B, like some money coming through, and I was able to share that with some of the artist friends that I had that were also struggling at the time. And
Hmm.
it was really fun. I had a great time doing it.
Well, that's awesome. So going back a little bit, then you've been an East Coast musician for about 10 years that I know of. But are
Yeah,
you originally from Prince Edward Island?
I am. Yeah, I grew up just like Bell River, Wood Islands area. So yeah, just basically just across from where you guys grew up
Yeah.
there in Pictou. So yeah, so I grew up there, and then I played music basically my whole childhood and growing up. I have three brothers, and two older and one younger, so they all played music before me. So the house was just full of instruments, and we would kind of jam all together. And I was in jazz band and concert band and all kinds of like uh, in school music career. And then, but yeah, I didn't really think it was a viable career option for a really long time. I was trying to be like a realist when I got to high
Yeah.
school, and I thought, you know what, like, how am I ever going to make a living doing this? And so I took all science classes, and then by the time I got to grade 12, I was like, you know what? I don't like solving, algebra, and like I don't like calculus. And so why am I doing this? I have so much more fun, and like I feel better when I play music and when I'm working towards that. So I'll just do that. So yeah, about 10 years ago I released my first record, and I've been going ever since.
And was the first one the Heather EP?
Yeah,
Okay.
Heather Avenue.
So coming out of releasing that, I imagine you were starting to get a little bit of a name for yourself on Prince Edward Island itself,
Yeah.
because that's where the area you would have been touring from, and that's the area that you grew up in. So you would have had a little bit of the hometown name recognition, I suppose.
Yeah, and I mean the music PEI really helped with that as well. Just like because I mean, kind of the classic scenario that I always hear about is like, oh well, you have a musician that starts out and they play shows and they grind for about 5 or 6 years before they like release something, and then
Hmm.
after that point, then they start to get a name for themselves. But I was lucky enough that, I had some help from my parents to release a record. They were like, well, if you're not going to do school, like we'll help you with this project instead. And so,
Awesome.
yeah, really, really amazing. Like supportive parents, I would, shout it from the rooftops. Like it's a game changer to have, that kind of support from your family.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I was lucky enough that I could have something out that people could recognize my name just from the recordings and be a part of the community kind of right off the bat.
Hmm.
And then yeah, so that really it changed everything to do that and kind of skip that 5 year grind almost.
And in that, by coincidence, 5 year time frame, about 5 years in, you tried out for a reality show.
Mm,
The launch. I was at the time would not have been watching any reality shows,
yeah.
music or not. So I'm not 100% familiar with it. I'm aware of it from seeing some news articles, and it was a memory refresher to see the articles when I was researching for this interview. But
Yeah, that was an interesting experience. I mean, that was the second TV show that I did because I also was like a finalist in CBC's Searchlight
okay.
in 2016. I think it was 2016. No, maybe 2016, 2017. So yeah, but with that one, it was a bit strange because I had never heard of it either. And then they were like, hey, we're just, we're starting this TV show and they reached out to me and they were like, we want to see some really great applicants and we would love to have you be a part of the show. And so yeah, they reached out to me and I thought, you know what, like this can't hurt. It definitely can't hurt anything to be a part of it. And so yeah, so I went up and did it, and I got to meet Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue. That was pretty
That's
cool.
cool.
And then play for Scott Borchetta, who used to be Taylor Swift's manager at the time. And I thought it was going to be like it's like, oh well, I mean, there's a lot of Universal label representatives there and other things. And even though I made great friends with them, it wasn't really like the time to
Hmm.
do anything like that. But I had a great time doing it. And with TV though, it's strange. There's a lot of hurry up and wait. There's a lot of like
Yeah.
basically my entire experience there was getting free clothes from and sitting in my dressing room and watching Seinfeld.
Yeah, well, there you go. Actually, Andrew will like that when he's going through and editing this episode. He runs another podcast with a different fellow that's not his brother.
Mm.
They do a Seinfeld podcast where they do
Oh,
recaps
amazing.
of all the episodes. So yeah, there's a
I
nice
love that
little
show.
plug for him as well.
It's crazy how still like so well, I think it's because it's like a show about nothing. Like
Yeah,
how much
it's
of that
so
still holds up.
yeah, it's amazing. It really
Yeah.
is. So from that experience, aside from like the networking perspective, did it have any impact on your songwriting or your sound? Because I'm not as familiar with your early recordings,
Mm.
but going back and listening to some of it, you definitely have a different sound in your earlier recordings than you do in your newer recordings.
Oh, for sure.
Um, Probably a little bit of Joel Plaskett influence in some of your older stuff, and
Oh yeah.
maybe going back to his Thrush Hermit days. Like, so there's a little bit more of a rockier vibe with some of it, and some of your newer stuff's not all not all super slow, but a folkier and some. The lyrically, I don't know if it's changed a lot. It's definitely more you're getting love songs and breakup songs in the mix a little bit more with some of the newer stuff. So was that influence from people that you were exposed to in working on these different shows, or people that you were touring with, or is it just organic evolution of an artist?
I think it's kind of a combination of a lot of different things. Like I would say organic evolution of an artist for sure. Like I started to listen to a lot more Wilco. And
Okay.
so like that influence, the alt country influence kind of came in
Mm-hmm.
and that and even now like I read a bunch of Jeff Tweedy's books, like his two books that he's got out now, and like just changed my mentality to how I write songs. But I think too I became a better player, and yeah, my influences grew, and but also working with not necessarily like touring musicians, but I mean obviously you learn from everybody that you work with. There's pieces of different things that come in, and even like subconsciously, you don't even realize that you're changing when you are, kind of thing. But really working with Romesh Thavanathan on Lost in Dreams, like he was the producer on that record, and he opened my eyes to a whole world of just understanding my voice better and
Mm-hmm.
understanding, where I sit in my own brain, and not trying to push myself into something that I'm not, or like out of my range, or like, it just, even if I could hit those notes, maybe it just sounds better if I don't hit those notes and I go down a little bit more.
Sure.
And even just like recording techniques with like how much gain to put on. Like I remember working with him the first time, and being like, oh well, like I can't really sing, because as soon as I start singing, like it's clipping because your gain is so high. And he's like, well, like that just means you have to figure it out, because this is how you're supposed to do it. And like just learning mic control and learning all these different things, like it definitely changed, yeah, how I record, but also like in the end how those songs are presented because of the changes in how I record them, um in the detail in it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's a lot of different factors of not only, and working with Adam Gallant too, who is a producer here on PEI. He's just like kind of a mad scientist in the way that he does things, and he's very analytical too. So he's not like, I like working with people that aren't yes men. So if I have a bad
Yeah,
idea, like I want somebody to tell me that it's not a great idea, you
for
know.
sure. Yeah.
And yeah, those are the kind of people that I really love working with, and I think I found it. I found that crew. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, like it sounds like I said, in the earlier ones, I'm kind of picking up some of the influences, and then the newer stuff, I mean, it's a Dylan Menzie song.
Yeah,
So
well,
I mean,
thanks. I
there is a difference that you could see over the 10-year progression. So
Yeah, well, I hope so. I hope, and I mean, you always kind of, especially like you're saying, like early on, I got compared to Joel a lot, and even like people would show him, my records and be like, oh, like, what do you think of this? And he's like, man, well, yeah, whatever.
yeah.
But I mean, obviously, what does he care about this young kid from PEI? But yeah, I feel like I have kind of grown into a version of something that I've never heard before.
Hmm.
It's like it feels more unique than it has, and that feels really good. And when I was young, and I mean, like really starting out, it was hard to like go up to people and be it's selling yourself and selling things, because you would get those comparisons, and then it's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm not trying to be that, and it's like, I'm just trying to find myself in this world, and use things that I love to like do that. But then, yeah, as you get older and things change and you start taking on more influences and having more life experiences, it just changes. And yeah, I feel like it's easier to now sell myself, because I feel more passionately that I'm offering something that you might not have heard before.
Yeah. And be some of that is going to be, I mean, over time, people know who you are because you've been around too. But your
Yeah.
own self confidence really sells it when you're pitching something to somebody. If you have that confidence, it's the not trying part that really sells it, because
Hmm.
it's there because you that is how you feel. And I think there's an honesty to that people pick up on when they're listening to somebody try to sell themselves.
Absolutely. There's a podcast that I love. It's Smartless,
Yes,
and it's like hosted by Jason Bateman. And anyway, he has this thing that he says is like sexy indifference. It's like, when you want it but you don't need it, kind of thing.
yeah,
And that's kind of like the difference between being 18 and going to ECMAs, and being almost 30 and going to ECMAs. It's like
for
it's a
sure.
completely different thing. I because I have a resume that kind of speaks for itself now. And it's different to go there and try and sell yourself, when it's easier to believe in myself now, I guess.
Yes, and now I know that you had just did a showcase for Music PEI because they just had their awards and everything just about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks by the time this airs.
Mm.
But you mentioned ECMAs. You're also nominated this year for two different awards.
Yep, the folk recording of the year and rising star recording of the year.
And Rising Stars for single, correct? And the folk recordings for full album? Is that how that works?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually confused about how that works. I mean, like, I think I'm trying to remember what the application process was like and like how, because I know that, yeah, a piece of me is the Rising Star recording that's
Yes.
nominated, but it's on that record, and
Yeah.
I don't really understand. Like, I don't remember if I submitted it as a single or not, but yeah, I'm really, really proud of those nominations because the record is like all self-recorded, like I did it, just sitting basically right exactly where I'm sitting right now in my dining room, and yeah, played all the parts and just had fun over the last spring and summer putting it all together, and
Did
yeah.
the single you had out right before the album, was that on the previous album or was it just a standalone single?
Cool.
Uh,
Yeah.
I Don't Want to
It's,
Hurt Doesn't Want Mine?
yeah, yeah. It's yeah, that was a breakup song that I did. I was going through a breakup a few years ago, and I had this idea just kind of strike me like a bolt of lightning one
Mm-hmm.
night, and I kind of just had all the chorus in my head all at once, and I was going to a party, and I had to like text everybody and be like, I'm not coming. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
home and write this thing because it just seems like there's something special going on right now in my head, and so I did, and I wrote like all of it that night, and then I was still in that mindset of like, because I listen to a lot of like Song Exploder too and
Yeah.
podcasts like that where they analyze stuff, and I can't remember his name, but the lead singer Win Butler from Arcade Fire was talking about how, making a record is half, meticulous preparation and half lightning in a bottle. And so I was like, I said to my producer, I was like, we got to get into the studio now because I want to be in this headspace, in this like kind of moment
Yeah.
right now. And like, I want that to come off on the record. And I think it does.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song. I've had that on my car, my infamous USB stick in my car.
Oh,
It's there's a few songs that I have on there that I swap out once in a while, but that's been on there for a while.
awesome. Thanks, man.
It's yeah, it speaks volumes to anyone that's ever been through a breakup, I'm sure. But when I originally was starting to listen to it, I was not in the middle of a breakup, so
Mm.
it still was a song that stuck out for me for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, even though it's a sad song, it's got to be a jam anyway, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm sure people would have seen me singing along maybe when I'm driving down the road, but I keep the windows up on those days.
nice.
So the new album, it was where you said you were doing a lot more of it yourself.
Hmm.
Did that kind of come as an inspiration out of that single? Like it was, or is there a little bit of a flow from one thing to the other, or was that already the path you were on?
It was kind of already the path that I was on, and to be honest, I had wanted to do sort of a record like this one for a long time, where it was just, I mean, the biggest song on there, which is a piece of me, it has like one kind of bass line acoustic guitar, one rhythm guitar, one harmony part, and the lead vocal. And I think the guy that mixed it also added like a little shaker part to the second
Okay.
chorus. But other than that, that's it. That's on there. And like I think there's also maybe like a fluttery flamenco kind of guitar part that's really, really down low in the mix.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's super bare on everything on it. And I wanted to do something like that for a long time, but I never felt like my writing was kind of there enough because when there's nothing there, the songwriting is all that's there.
Yeah.
Um, and so like it really has to speak to something and tell a story, a really good story. And I finally had a collection of songs that I thought, you know what, like when I listen to these with just these very bare bones parts, like it does, I don't feel like it needs anything else. And so even like I did one called like a reimagination of some songs from a record called Adolescent Nature, and it was called As the Clock Rewinds, which was more of the folky, laid back thing. But I wanted that originally to be just like I said, like a very bare bones thing. But as we got into the studio, it just didn't feel right to do it that way. So we added a lot more production and a lot more things, which again, I'm grateful for because I learned a lot while I did it.
Yeah.
And, but now I finally felt like I had something that I could release like that. Um, so yeah, I was really happy to do it that way and finally kind of put something out. Like, I grew up listening to Tallest Man on Earth, and those records are so bare bones that I wanted something that I could say as much with.
And Ed, we have a companion playlist that we put along with these regular episodes as well. So I was putting a framework of one together to go along for your episode.
Cool.
I leaned heavy on modern classic because as I was listening to it, those were a lot of songs I kept going back to anyway. But I also did find a couple, maybe 2 or 3 cover songs that I added on there that you'd recorded over time as well. And one thing I noted when listening to cover songs, like everybody likes somebody that just nails their favorite song when they're watching a cover live.
Mm.
But as far as listening to pre-recorded covers, something I picked up a long time ago from a radio personality was to kind of focus more so on the ones that don't sound as much like the originals. And I did notice that you do play them so that they're recognizable, but they're also Dylan Menzie songs. Like to start that turn of phrase around the East Coast, Dylan Menzie song.
Right. Wow. Hey.
Yeah, but yeah, they have
first, everybody.
Exactly. There's a little bit of a different vibe when you do the covers than there is from the original of those songs. Is that a deliberate thing, or is that more? It sounds like there's a common theme across all of your projects that you're experimenting a little bit while you're trying to produce something new. So you have a vision, but you're experimenting along the way. So you're not even 100% certain how it's going to turn out.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely true. And sometimes like I have a pretty good indication of what I want the cover to turn out like the one of Whiter Shade of Pale. I kind of knew, like I said, like that collection of songs was supposed to be more laid back, supposed to be a lot less. And then I mean, I heard the string part on it, and I wanted to kind of reimagine what was already there. So that one came pretty naturally. But then other ones, like I did a cover of Drive by the Cars, and
Yes.
I didn't even know what I was playing when I first started playing it, and I just kind of like I had this riff on. I was playing banjo, which I don't really ever play, and I just like started playing this thing, and then it just reminded me of that song. And I'm like, oh, well, that would be kind of fun to do something like that. And then it just kept growing and growing and growing into this thing uh, that I really fell in love with. And actually, that is probably my favorite cover that I've done. It's the cover of Drive. And again, because that was really the first thing that I ever did where I recorded it myself, like completely.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it felt like, again, like I had passed some sort of threshold or like a plateau. And I really have fallen in love with doing a lot of recording myself. Because even in the studio, you get kind of like, I don't know, I get in my own head about wasting somebody else's time, or if you're on the clock too, like some producers will do like a per song basis.
Mm-hmm.
So like, which is pretty great. You don't have to worry about the clock running out. You just pay a set fee. But if you're on the clock, it can be like 50, $60 an hour. And if
Mm-hmm.
you have to try and like we were talking about, be creative and you don't really know where it's going sometimes. And sometimes I do have a set demo, but most of the time, depending on if it's a solo singer-songwriter vibe or whatever, I don't really know where it's going. So if you're trying to be creative on the spot like that and it's costing you $60 an hour, like it can be pretty tough on your
Yeah.
mind to do that. So like when you demo and I started recording myself more and more, I just felt like I could open myself up more and just try stuff that just might not work, and
And
have fun
so
doing it.
I can see how you're gravitating towards being more hands-on and having more control and using that to increase the amount of fun that you're able to have with it to remove some of those stresses. And I can parallel that to some of my personal life stuff. Just removing stress in your life in general allows you to be a little bit more free with stuff. But in doing that, you open up some opportunities as well. So are you considering maybe in the future producing for other people?
I I would like to, yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that I've thought of, but in another sense, it's like there's so many amazing producers on the East Coast already.
Sure.
Like, do I really want to try and break into that scene? Like, do I really need to do that? I don't know. I'd like to try it for sure. But yeah, that's kind of my whole thing is like I'm down to try whatever.
Yeah.
I'll do anything at least once. You know.
And so coming up, the ECMAs are coming up really soon. Are
Hmm.
you showcasing at that as well since
I
you're
am,
running it?
yeah. I'm playing the award show,
Hmm.
and I'm also going to do a showcase at Alderney Landing, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So playing a couple
Awesome.
times with the band over there.
Lots of
Um,
opportunities. And so do you have a tour coming up, or are you getting ready to
yeah.
record even more material as a follow up to these potential awards?
Well, I do have kind of 6 songs in the can that I've already kind of worked on. And speaking of, working on projects where, you can be more free and less stress. And I decided with this project that I have coming out that I wanted it to be more of that. So, I worked with Joshua Van Tassel out of Nova Scotia, and he played drums on everything. But when we sent him the tracks, it was just like a guide vocal and a guitar line, and then it was like I didn't tell him what to play at
Hmm.
all. So I was just like whatever you feel and like whatever you think is gonna fit best for this track, like just go in that direction, and we'll see like how we can play together, given just like your best creativity. Like just like throw everything at the wall, see what sticks, and then send it back to me when you think you've come up with something that really fits it and is great. And sometimes what he would send back, like there's a song called Major Line, and what he sent back was completely out of what I thought it was going to be, like
Yeah.
or anything that I would have imagined, because we were picturing it like kind of like this folkier four on the floor vibe, and he sent back something in halftime, and it just like it accentuated the chords in a way that I never thought that they could be. And I just loved that. And again, that's a perfect indication of like, oh well, giving artists the opportunity to just like be in their own space and not worry about the stresses and stuff. So I'm really excited about those recordings too. And then same
Yeah.
thing with the guy that played bass on A Heart That Doesn't Want Mine, Evan McCaution. With this one, we sent him all the songs with the drums and everything laid, and it's just like again, just play what you feel, and then we'll work it out after that, kind of thing. But just give us whatever you think is going to be the best. And yeah, I love that way of working. And sometimes even if he's in the studio, it's like I'm giving notes while he's there. Like the producer's got notes, and he's just can't like he's trying to learn the part and also make a note of what everybody's telling him at the same time. And it's just I don't know. I feel like it's a lot less stressful, and they can be a better version and a more creative version of themselves at home.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's a freedom that a lot of people sometimes forget about when you're trying to make money out there.
Hmm.
But it's nice that we've adopted a lot of tools over the last 5 to 10 years to allow for free collaborations like that to even happen. It used to be like that's something you could do if you had a lot of money or if you
Hmm.
had enough time, but now it seems to be a little bit more universally available to people. So
Yeah, and
it's
I mean,
wonderful to
like
hear.
the pandemic, like for all the horrible things that it caused the world, like that is one positive to come out of it is a willingness to work in separate spaces and
Hmm.
to yeah, maybe let go of the reins a little bit more.
And so going forward, are you looking at maybe expanding further out, like maybe outside of the East Coast is probably the obvious, but are you looking
Yeah,
at expanding outside of even the country at any point, or is it
yeah. I
just
have
kind
I
of
have a
wait and see?
tour. I have a tour lined up for May of this year
Hmm.
to go down to like the New England states. I have like a weekly residency gig at the Philadelphia Museum of Art for the month of May.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Somebody told me that it's the scene from Rocky, like the steps that he runs up, like
Oh
that's the
yeah, yeah.
Philadelphia Museum of Art. So it's pretty cool to like have a show there. So I'm excited to recreate those scenes down there,
Oh, you got to do
and
that.
then I'm gonna go to, yeah, yeah, I have to do
Yeah.
it. But
That's begging
yeah,
for a
and
social media post.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I'm really excited to do that. I've never really done a tour of the States before, aside from conferences like Folk Alliance International and
Hmm.
things, just unpaid stuff. So this is the first time I really got to do the whole visa
Yeah.
excursion, and yeah, it's a process for sure.
Yeah, but that's exciting and another different opportunity for you. It seems to fall right in your wheelhouse of liking to try new things.
Yeah, and even too, like I was saying with this record, Modern Classic, I got more comfortable with my solo show and the songs being themselves. So this is a whole solo tour down there. So
Oh,
it's going to be
cool.
fun.
Awesome. So going forward, people can keep an eye out looking for the tour dates and some new material. Where should they follow you online?
You can follow me. I'm pretty much strictly on just Instagram these days. Although I've been toying with the idea of starting a TikTok account, but yeah, Instagram at Dylan underscore Menzie is the way to go for that. And you
If you
can
go
also go to my
TikTok,
website too.
TikTok, you got to do the stairs. If you go on TikTok,
Exactly.
that's absolutely a TikTok video right there.
And luckily, there's already a sound that matches perfectly.
Yeah. Is there any content? You have stuff on Bandcamp as well,
Yep. Yeah, I do
and Spotify.
for
So
sure.
if somebody wants to throw a few bucks Bandcamp, if they want you to get a few cents and listen to Spotify over and over and over again, you'll get some eventually.
Oh my God, my dad had this whole like he used to for Spotify, he used to set up like 10 fake kind of accounts, 10 or 12 fake accounts. And he would have all of his old cell phones running my music 24/7. And he's
Yeah.
like, look at the numbers. Look at the numbers here. It's like by the end of the year, like you're gonna have like $150 or something just because of these 10 phones. And he's just trying to mine Spotify plays, which was
Yeah.
pretty funny.
Yeah.
But I don't think he still does it anymore, but it was pretty funny at the time.
They did that on the Netflix show Girls Forever.
Oh,
There's a
really?
scene with their old manager, and he has old cell phones and tablets, and he has every device around his office, and he's pressing all the buttons on everything. It's
Oh,
pretty
I
good.
love that. Like I said, supportive parents, that's where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely. And we usually play out with a song. So, is there a song you'd like our listeners to hear as they part ways with us today?
Why not play a piece of me? I think that's a
It
good one.
seems
It's
appropriate.
for sure. It's all about, if I had a piece of who I am and I gave it to you, like, would you hold on to it? So I feel like this is a piece of myself that I just gave. So
Awesome. Awesome sentiment. Good little backstory behind the song. And congratulations on the nominations. Good
hey,
luck
thank you so
going into the
much.
ECMAs. I'm planning on being somewhere on site in some capacity, so maybe I'll meet you again in person.
I would love
Uh,
that.
hopefully, get rid of this little tickle that's been bothering my throat. I'm not too comfortable with that, even in these open days.
For
I
sure.
still
Anytime
still
I
got to
cough
deal
in
with.
public, I'm like, oh no, they all think I got it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh well, but hopefully there's still a few weeks away. I should be fine by then. So I'll keep an eye out for you. Thanks again for joining us,
Yeah, thank you so
and
much for having me. It was a blast.
we'll keep an eye out for new material, and our listeners today can listen to a piece of me. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.
If I broke you off a piece of myself, would you care for me and put me up on a shelf? Wading through the water at the beach, would you clean me up and take me home if you found me? Honestly, if you had a piece of me, tell me the truth. Would you keep it close to you? Honestly, if you could hold on to me, tell me the truth. Would you keep it close to you? Would you keep me on a lock and key? Or put me on the mantle for everyone to see? like some kind of trophy. Well, you could take me anywhere that you go, put me in your pocket so you never feel alone. All alone. No, honestly, if you had a piece of me, tell me the truth, would you keep it close to you? Honestly, if you could hold on to me, tell me the truth, would you keep it close to you? Oh, tell me the truth, would you keep it close to you? Oh, tell me the truth, would you keep it close to you? Would you keep it close?